Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We'll just give a minute or two for those who are still doing their stretches and their competitions in Guru Space to come back, and then we will start. I think we have lost some brave soldiers along the way. It is a very, very long day and a long session, but thanks for those of you who returned. So let's see if we get some other participants back in the room. I should have put up some music that we could dance, at least a celebration escape dance. Okay, so while we wait for the others to join, um, I've asked the moderators to bump you all up to presenter status so that you can put on your mics or your cameras even if you want to. And maybe let's quickly discuss. We are just a very, very small group currently, but nevertheless, let's quickly talk about the escape room. And at the beginning of the escape room, before I asked you to play it in your groups, I asked you to take some notes or some mental notes, at least then, during the process of what was nice, which is always good to hear, but also what icked you and what irritated and frustrated you um, in the game. So I'm not going to pick on anyone specifically here in front of me. So anyone who wants to just unmute and share maybe what was the things that frustrated you. Bianca, the mic is yours.
Awesome. Yeah, there was just and you were in our group when it happened, but we just felt that the crossword, that down crossword, it was worded in such a strange way that we were all, and then we started breaking it apart. And then we went, yeah, and then we went back, and then we were like trying to, and just because there was like literally nothing, and then it took us to a link of a paper that we didn't have access to. Unless I was signed in somewhere else through my university, there was no way I could access the document. So then it became quite frustrating. Um, so those are little things that are, I know when we've got to develop stuff, we also have to make sure that everything's accessible, and that if there's a hint and stuff. Actually, really, I think we all enjoyed it, and we actually had a nice group. We had a lot of fun together. But for me, that was really the only thing that really irked me, and I think the group as well. You were there, you heard us. We were like, oh, okay, well, it kind of is this. We were thumb sucking in the end, which was frustrating as well. So.
Thank you very much for that. And Pam, I'm going to give you the mic right now. And that is one of the interesting things that we often as lecturers, and I know some of you said, but I joined the group late or I joined the workshop late, so I didn't hear it. But we ask things from our students, and then we say, but I have seen this so many times in the class. How can you not remember that? We assume because we have stressed it a few times that they will remember it. So if I think of the slides when I said these are the critical skills, the transferable skills, the portable skills. So again, if you create in a game like that, that there is always a link where if they really get stuck, where they can go to. You had to phone a friend, and you did phone a friend there, or I just volunteered myself there. But how do you navigate that so that the students don't get stuck and get frustrated? So that is a crucial point. And I think the thing of links not working, that is also very important. So we'll talk a little bit later on how do you get stuff that will not change or will not disappear. So very valid point there. Thank you. Pam.
Hi, I have used games. I've used book widgets in my teaching with B.Ed students, and I have been attacked that it is not suitable for university students. And I do know that when the students had to create little games with book widgets, I do know that it was the most valuable part of that module which the students did. However, HOD and management jumped all over me, and I stopped using all games totally. And I don't know if I was just ahead of my time or what, but I don't know.
And that is the frustration. And if we think of the signature pedagogies, when we spoke about the challenges and things, that not everyone buys into that. But if we look at the literature, and we are currently doing a systematic review, or actually a scoping review, of the use of games and game-based learning in our context, in the humanities and liberal arts here. And there are quite a number of publications that gives us evidence of that it's working, or if not working,
I
then it gives
know.
the same results. So yeah, that is really, really the frustrating part. I understand that. I really do you think you will start using it again, maybe with a different
I
approach?
have since left the university and I'm now looking for something, but the wind was knocked out of me.
Yeah.
I do know that the students enjoy creating them to use in their classrooms. Sorry, I was working with teaching students.
Hmm.
Um, I would like to go back to it.
Yeah, and there's so much value in it. And it's what's interesting for me, when I think of my students, when I played the game with them, and as I said, they are PhD students, that some of them was upset. They would say, I honestly don't care about the story. I don't care about the narrative and the riddles and the things. Give me the assignments that I have to do. Let me solve the quizzes and let me go. And then what surprised me is that they had to create a game because they registered for the elective, and then they created this nice creative game. So sometimes I think they don't always see the value of these things, which is sad. But there's enough literature to say that this is a didactically sound way of teaching, and it is unfortunate if then the managers and the administrators do not buy into this concept.
I think that they're still stuck on the paper mode.
Yes, and with ChatGPT, the sad part is that many of them are just reverting back to paper-based exams because they are scared of the plagiarism and the
Yep.
cheating, so they just go back to default that. But let's not even open that can of worms now.
Okay.
But thanks. But I hear your struggles and your frustrations. Um, Anyone else wants to add the good, the bad, the frustrating of the game that they've played? You can just
I will just
unmute.
add something if I
Mhm.
may. It was so
Yes.
nice that you actually had questions which related to the topic, which was about game-based learning. And that, so you have to embed the theory that you want the students to know into the game. That's crucial.
Thank you. And in some of the workshops, I actually play the game first before I do the theoretical concepts, because then the theoretical concepts go actually much quicker because by the time they've played the game, they have actually looked at all these concepts already. So again, if you use this in your own teaching to see how do you balance it off, where do you position it in your teaching? But thanks, I try to. Um, but yeah, there's some of the words which I realized when I was doing this workshop in Australia, that things like transferable skills, that I think is a common used word in my discipline, they refer to it as portable skills or transverse skills or graduate attributes. So that's also something that we need to look into our own jargon and how relevant or how understandable is that to our participants if they play the game. Anyone else wants to add? I'm going to give one or two more people a chance and maybe manipulate them into sharing. You're a very decent group. Did I miss someone's hand? Let me just see here in the chats. Um, So let me quickly, sorry, I just want to read the chats and I don't want to read it out loud. Okay, thank you. Yes, due to the limitations of Google Forms, sorry, I just quickly, yes. So this is what, Ronnie, thanks for that. And that is a frustration, and that is one of the things I actually wanted to talk to you about, is how do we design a game that stays in the same platform? So if we look at Google Forms, it's you can embed the videos and things in the Google Forms, but depending on what you want to ask, you will either have to open other branches or the students will have to know the answers and answer the questions in the Google form. Things like Storyline 3, H5P, you can sometimes embed some of the things in there. But again, you need to decide, what do you want to achieve with your students? A very, very relevant or complaint that people have, and that is a frustration that we really, really need to think of, that there are so many windows open every time, and very often it distracts the students' attention as well. So you need to navigate this very, very carefully when you create this game. You'll see in the anti-plagiarism game that I shared with you, it all remains in the same platform. The student doesn't go out of the platform, but not everyone has access to that. And even in Google Slides with your pop-up windows that you can create, or your light boxes, that's a possibility. But if you want to link them to recent content and show them other activities, then again you have to balance between the, should I take them out or should I keep them here? But very, very good feedback. Thank you. All right. So I am not going to read everything here. So please feel free to just unmute and chat if you want to. But thank you for that. I'll read all of the feedback later on, and I hope you also read it as you were going through that. But that just again alludes to the fact that there are obstacles in the games, and things that's easy for us is not easy for other people. It's easy for me to open various pop-up windows because I've got two screens and I use my phone. Our students do not always have that luxury of doing it. So how do we then create for that? So let me quickly go back to the famous words of, let me share my screen. And then we can continue. And we are going to adapt our program a little bit. I did not plan for the 30-minute break for the Kahoot space, so sorry for that. So we might not be able to do everything I thought we would do today, but we will still cover the basic important concepts. So let me share my screen. Okay. I have pasted some of these links for you in the chat. If you left Blackboard, the Blackboard app, and you came back and you can't see those links, please give me a shout. Then I'll repost them again for us all to get. And also the contact details of the student who created the game on Google Slides. Okay, so if we then now start with our own games, and I think it's good. We've experienced it. We know what we liked and what we didn't like. We know that the story is important, that we want to create a story. So now we need to start with the development of our game. And first of all, we ask many, many questions, but this is the summary of 3 screens that I usually do with my students as well. And we need to purposefully think about these questions. So the first one, obviously, is then, who's my audience? So it's the undergraduate, postgraduate, lecturers, professional people, and what is the topic and the focus of this game that I want to develop? So is it on anti-plagiarism? Is it threshold concepts? Is it on World War II? So what is my topic? And then what do I want to achieve with this game? So what is the purpose? So what is the behavioral change that I want with my students? And why am I using it? Is this for revision? Is it new concepts? Because that will also determine the layout. If you think of the game that you've played now, if this was just a revision game, most probably many of these links you would not need. You would have been able to just answer the questions. But we also want to give our students some tips and some help and support along the way. But again, what's the purpose? And then very important, will this be a single player game or a team game? You will see the anti-plagiarism game. You can play alone, which is fine, or you can play it as a team. But do you want your students to learn together, to cooperate and to collaborate? Or do you want them just to see and to compete against one another? And one of the reasons why I ask you in the game that just one person open the Google documents, because we want you to discuss each thing together. We don't say, okay, I've got this, I've solved the riddle for the rock, and I've solved the flashcards riddle, and so we really want you to sit and discuss. So how do you want to structure this? And then again, the length of it. How long should this take? If I think of this game that you've played, I can play it in less than 15 minutes because I know the content, because I know the story. So I can kind of scan through it, and that is the danger when we create our own games again, because we get so familiar with the content that we forget that someone who's not familiar with it, that sees it for the first time, will take longer to go through the story. And what I loved about the breakout groups, that some of you really you gave the emphasis, you read it, you played the role, and that takes time. It takes time to really go into the role and do the wow and the gasps and the everything. So when you read through it, it takes much quicker. So again, that planning in your own game creation. So that is the first part of your planning. Then you need to start with your story. So what would be the synopsis? So you have already, your content, you have your learning outcomes. Now, what would be the synopsis? Will this be a zombie apocalypse? I can never say that word. Will it be a journey somewhere? Will you be on an airplane or on a boat or locked in a classroom? So what is your synopsis? And then you need to decide, so how many challenges will there be? So for instance, in my case, I thought, okay, I want to expose you to at least 8 or 9 different tools and techniques that you can use. So there will be, say for instance, 10 threshold concepts. So then I say, okay, I will need 10 challenges to address each of these threshold concepts, or can I combine some of the threshold concepts? And then again, now that I have my story and I know how many challenges there will be, because that will also link to the length of the time, you need to decide who's the characters in your game. Is there going to be a villain? Like in our case, the crew left you on the island, and obviously the hero came to collect you again. But are you going to journey with someone? Is there going to be a helper, a guide, a support? Who's going to be in your game? And then, very important, obviously, at the end, how will you celebrate? You don't want the students to play this game and work together, and then at the end, when they hit the submit button, they go like in, congratulations, you have escaped the island. You can now exit the game. You don't want that. You want banners and fireworks or a song or something that says, wow, yes, wonderful. You are so, so, so great. So please work in the celebration at the end. And then you have to decide, now that you have your story, your challenges, and who's going to play that and how will you celebrate it, what clues will you incorporate there? And I think it was Pam now who said that it was frustrating that some of the links was dead. Sorry, I can't remember, but that said you went to the link and the link wasn't there. And in my previous iteration, the students went to cram, and cram didn't work at all. It was just dead. They couldn't even open the flashcards. So if you create these clues, and if the clues are not working, what else do you what's your backup plan? What do you have as an alternative to that? So in some of my games, I actually have a QR code. If the students really get stuck, I say scan the QR code, and they scan the QR code and it gives them the answer. It's like, call it like phone a friend, but that there is at least a clue or an answer to help them. Then for the challenges, so how will you create? You now know how many challenges you want. So how will you create these challenges? The paint by numbers math game, or the crossword puzzle, and how we create these different challenges. Because if we think of the diversity of our students, not all of them want to watch a video, not all of them want to do a math riddle. So how do you incorporate the different preferences and the diversity in the group, so that all of them feel that they can contribute in the game? Then how do you create the logs and the verification of the logs? And that sometimes takes a while, depending on which platform you use. And then very, very important is, which platform will you use? And the reason why I'm kind of laughing as well is, last night, as I was converting the Google Form game to Twine, because I thought, well, let me brag and show you how you play it on Twine, I realized with my limited experience on Twine, and I don't know if you can do it, you can't get validation answers. So you can get mostly multiple choice questions. So you can pick, you can pick an answer, and you can take you to a route, and the route can circle, but you can't ask them to type in the 248425 number of the rock. You can only give it to them, and then what happens is they can make just educated guesses, or just guess and just click until they get to the right answer. And then you lose this opportunity for them to really engage, because especially if it is a highly competitive group and they compete for time, that they will not do the effort to go and try and solve and discuss, and they will just click. So depending on what you want to achieve, you need to look at the different platforms. So yes, Google Forms, you can have your validation in, even in Storyline 3 and in H5P, you can put in the validation. So again, what do you want to achieve, and how steep is the learning curve, and how much time do you have for this learning curve to learn this? But it is really worth it to learn these tools and to play with them. So what I do with my students and some of my larger workshops that I do is I give the participants and my students a workbook, and it looks something like this. And I know you can't really read it on the screen, and that's perfectly fine. That's not the intention that you read it, but that I take them through a step-by-step process of conceptualizing their game. And I've given you a link in the chat there of the workbook, so you can just download a piece of this workbook where you conceptualize your game. And after a few minutes, I'll talk for a few more minutes, I'll give you a few minutes to start to conceptualize your own game, so then we can work with that document. So first of all, and this is really a recommendation for you as well, to start planning it on paper. So just put the ideas on paper so that you can go back and focus. And if you have to explain to someone your game, that you have it here. And obviously, if you want to write it up as a research paper or as a SATL, then you have your documentation in place already. So after that, I ask them then to start using the branching. So this is how Twine look if you branch it on Twine, and it's actually easier than it looks to do it there. But even if you are scared of technology, if you don't want to, and I know most of you are instructional designers, so I know you are not scared of technology, but I actually tell my students, you know what, if you don't want to do it on Twine, do it on Miro, or do it on an interactive whiteboard, or do it on a PowerPoint slide, or if all else fails, just do it on paper and do your branching. So very often in my in-person workshops, I give them sticky notes. I give them sticky notes and say, let's do the branching with the sticky notes, just to get your thought process, and that you can see how the branches flow, so that you can see that each story has an ending, or if you want to bring them all together again. So now let's start with the conceptualizing. So quickly look at the document that says worksheet. in the chats, and the worksheet should download something that looks like this on Google Forms. And you can just give me a thumbs up if you found it. It's always this working with two screens and getting the mouse to the participants. Okay. Does everyone manage to get that? Got it. Okay, great stuff. So please open it. And I'm sure you know this, but this was a really handy trick for me to share a forced copy of documents with participants. In my very, very first workshop, they missed my documents, and they changed some of the things, not necessarily on purpose. So then I realized participants need to make their own copy. So great stuff. So you all got your own copy, right? So before we start working on that, I want to wait. No, let's rather stop there. Okay. I want you, if I can get my mouse to the stop screen button. Great stuff. Okay, there we are. All right, so now you all have that document in front of you, and I know we are we are a little bit larger group than we was. So for the next 8 minutes, quickly think of your own game that you want to develop, and it can be on anything. It can be on making perfume, a cooking lesson, anti-plagiarism, whatever, and quickly plot down on that document the first few concepts. And I'm going to mute myself so that you can do that. Did you all manage to complete that section, or do you want about 5 more minutes to try and complete the conceptualization phase? Done, Bianca? Okay, it seems as if the time was enough then. Okay, great stuff. So now can I put you on the spot? Not necessarily Bianca, anyone, if you feel comfortable doing that. Do any of you want to unmute and quickly tell us a little bit? You don't have to read it bullet by bullet, but quickly share with us your idea for your game. Otherwise, I will have to pick on someone.
Okay, I'll just jump in.
Thanks, Bianca.
Yeah, so basically even though I'm an instructional designer, I still teach post-grad, more on the professional design side to graphic design or visual communication students. So one of the things that my students and throughout time in graphic design, they tend to be, and I say this carefully, but in general, they're very social, airy-fairy types. And I know I myself come from that space. So it takes a lot of time and effort to be very mature, business-minded, and professional, so that you don't, in short, get screwed over by your clients, which happens a lot. So one of the things that I try and instill in my postgrad students is a sense of accountability, responsibility, and also the ability to be professional, so that you basically are crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, because they don't get it until they go into the real world and they lose money and they lose time. They don't get it. So I thought, well, maybe creating a game so it's not so harsh, because it is harsh, but maybe a game where we call it like going pro or something, so playing on the GoPro vibe. And they learn about time management, documenting their process work, and essentially just understanding the importance of that documentation, not only from a legal perspective of being tackled saying, well, you stole something from someone else, because you can obviously prove that, but also protecting oneself from one's client. When a client takes stuff, and it's happened to me, where they take stuff, they put a billboard up and they're like, oh, but I didn't get it from you, and then you can prove in the long run that you did this stuff. And the students always like, oh, but it's so boring, I don't want to document this process work. So then I thought, well, if we created the sort of race against the clock kind of game, where they have to submit certain artifacts after reading certain things, and actually use some of the software. So for instance, one of the things that I try and include is like Clockify, where it does time management for professionals, and you can actually build invoicing and stuff, but they can actually do little tasks and then quickly submit them, but against the clock. And if they miss that deadline, then like the design police will come after them, and then they lose points. And by the end, if they finish with a certain amount of points, they obviously win the job, win the invoice, win the virtual money, and they realize the importance of that. So that's kind of the idea behind that.
Sounds really, really great and interesting. Any feedback from the group, Bianca? Positive suggestions?
I really like that idea.
And yeah, Vanya, awesome idea. So great stuff. So it's nice to see that you are already applying to the concepts, the game-based principles, but in a real world situation. So that really sounds nice. I like it. Can we have one or more, just one or two people more, to maybe share their conceptualization of their game? In the in-person workshops, it's easier that I can walk to someone and put my hand on their shoulder and say, thank you for volunteering. So on whose shoulder can I put my hand and say, thank you for volunteering?
Hi, Irene. I'm not really volunteering per se, but this concept is really new to me. This concept of teaching students by game. And I'm not sure if I have any other members from the health sciences who are in this workshop. I was trying to check around, probably I could be the only one, even from the dental school. But I was listening, though I had to go away with the games that you shared. And I think the first one where you had that boy and the person was posing as a doctor, and you had things that you said the student can click to get clues and stuff like that. I think that resonated with me because that's how we teach the students, to examine the patient and gather the information all together and present to the patient so that they can come with the diagnosis and the treatment planning. So I was thinking about the game around that is on my discipline. I'm an orthodontist, so I teach them orthodontics. So I normally find that the students, especially in the database, they forget that the database is a laundry list of everything that you have collected about the patient, like how you had those things. There was a suitcase there was some click buttons where they can get the different databases about this patient. It's a young patient, a child of about maybe 8 or 10 years old, and some of the data that we collect are race specific. So if you have an African patient or a Caucasian patient, so I was thinking up around those lines of giving them those clues, and then so that at the end, then they can come out then with the diagnosis of what is wrong with this patient and how are they going to treat. But I did not finish everything because I missed out more when you were doing the exercise. I was out, so I just came back. But I managed to download the Google form, and I think the last statement I posted was, "I like the game thing. I will contact you, Irene." So I'm just like speaking because I saw there was no one speaking, but I don't have anything like tentative, and I'm not sure if anyone understand my line of duty where I want to create this. Thank you. This is for the undergraduate student, but I think it can work for postgrads as well.
Okay, no, that sounds really fine, or not like a nice idea. And I think just doing it in a different way for the students, that it's not this two-page document where they have to read the patient's assessment history and I want to say the boring stuff, doing the boring stuff in a different way and just having our students to think differently, because as you've rightly said, so they will not necessarily get all the patient information in one nicely folder and everything is there. So they have to search, they have to ask the patient, they have to look at the client at the comorbidities and things. So how do we get the students to think beyond just the mouth and the teeth that they see in front of them? But I think for your students, it's also sometimes a challenge because it is also a very serious, well, all disciplines are serious, but our dentistry students are sometimes very, very, what's the word that we say? Uh, now I think I've used up all my English now in this
I
session.
mean, like narrow-minded, they are thinking the truth.
Yeah, no, not necessarily narrow-minded and tunnel vision, but they are very composed. They are very serious. They are very
Oh,
serious.
serious.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
And I
it's
think
the
that
nature of the discipline. It's just stressful. So I think
it
bringing in a game in it maybe will lighten the situation.
definitely, and even if you let them create the game and you give them tips and ideas and say, okay, fill in this blanks. There's the patient, or there's the in H5P or in Genly, and you ask them, you add the information, you create the patient scenario, and then we exchange these scenarios and we ask one group to solve the other one's a mystery to make the diagnosis. So I think there's a lot of potential that we can do. that this is not necessarily an escape room, but it's a different way of gamifying and making the learning and the assessment a little bit more interesting. And I know as the two of us are maybe, as you said, the only 2 years from a health sciences background. But then another approach which was quite interesting that I've seen long ago was in I think it was actually in medicine, where the lecturer gave the students in their groups bags with empty vials and medication boxes and things like that, and he said, okay, so this is the medication your patient is using. Give us a diagnosis. What's wrong with your patient? What's happening here in his life? So that's a total different, if we think it's kind of a reverse case study. So how do you get the students now to think differently? Because our patients do that. They come and say, well, I'm drinking a white and I red pill. So, so those type of things, or even then with the teeth, and I can't really give good examples there, but so how do we take our own discipline, whether it is philosophy, health, political science, environmental science, and how do we use those concepts to make it interesting for the students? So I think that is a nice and a unique challenge for us, but it's worth it. It's really, really worth it. So thank you, Pam. Yes. The mic is yours.
Just a reflection. Employed by anybody. I'm now trying to write online courses, which I'm trying to sell. And I would like to have a game, but I think that students need to be gently introduced to the game. Mm-hmm. So just thinking aloud that you had the H5P thing or geniality where you had to click on something. And I think that you need to gently introduce the elements that you find in a game individually, building up to the final game. Do you get what I'm not explaining very well. So you need to have a crossword. You need to do a crossword, and you need to do clicking on dots, and you need to get information from a video. All those different things need to be separately for marks, and then you have your final game where they all blend together. Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking aloud for myself because my students do not work in a group. That is when I start, of course.
And I think the concept of scaffolding the activities is really important. And I hear what you say about the assessment. I'm a little bit reluctant to give marks to game-based learning, in the sense of I would, and I think Johannes Cronje referred to this morning as well. We say if they do the activity, they get the 20 marks, irrespective of how long it took them, the fact that they've done it. So with game-based learning, I would say if they complete the game, because they can't progress to the next stage until they've done this one thing. So if they complete the game, they get the marks, irrespective of whether it took them 5 minutes or 5 weeks to play the game.
I don't want there to be a mark, but there just must be an acknowledgement that they did it.
Yes. And I think the adaptive release and the scaffolding there will work well. Maybe on a side note, since you want to create games and sell it, have a look at our students' work, in the sense of they were able to get a DOI for their games that they've created, which is quite a new approach. It was a struggle, but for all of you, actually, to get a DOI for your games is really something that is nice. It comes on your ResearchGate, on your ORCID code. It's worth the effort to do that.
Thanks.
Okay. Right. So, I will read the message now in the chat. So we've still got about 25 minutes for our session. So what I want us to do in the next, again, 10 minutes, and then I'll again ask for sharing. So if you look at the conceptualizing document and you scroll down now, and in the next iteration, I am going to ask you what is the learning outcome. But if you look at the game itself, and this is the fun part. So for 10 minutes, I want you to think of your game, plotting the scene, and will it be in the bunker or where? But please make it fun. Now, so for 10 minutes, quickly sit and plot down the game itself. And then I'll bring us back here. Again, I'm going to do individual work. I don't want you, this is now working groups. So plot down your ideas, and then we come back and we'll do one or two more things before we wrap it up. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so who managed to dream up a game in 10 minutes time? Okay, Bianca, thank you. Do you want to share?
Sure, not completed. So based off of the original stuff,
Uh-huh.
I filled that as much as I could. So I said going pro, real world of design professionalism, beat the cheats. You and your team have been hired to pitch to, and then I gave two scenarios depending on the type of designer you want to go in, you want to be. So either you're a world-class advertising agency working on multinational projects in the entertainment industry, or if you're the designer that likes to do social change, then you work for an international agency for social change, working on messaging and projects around cancer, gender-based violence, etc., depending on the time of year. So you have X amount of time to get the job, but be sure not to miss the steps or you may lose out on that awesome paycheck. So it says, is it fun and immersive? I said, well, a little trauma-inducing never hurt people in the real world. So it's a little bit of everything. I said so the hero would be you, the advertising team. The villain would be the client or people who are ignorant, especially if you're working in social change, or the media that can change the way that you think. I hadn't got to challenges yet, but I went straight into hacks and I said, like, one of the hacks could be mentor me and having access to a real world designer for that session to help them through a tough situation. Especially in university, most of us are still designers in the real world. So you could easily have access to someone. So the mentor me would be a good idea because we talk about mentorship in advertising. And then a reward, I said that obviously succeeding and proving that your team are professional and can overcome the obstacles, there's this big exciting thing at the end. But I do think that at that level, you don't have hundreds of students doing postgrad. For me, you could actually correlate that to real world rewards such as payment towards winning vouchers for airtime or printing their final project or even some design stationery. That could really be a helpful thing to see. Well, in the real world, if you get a salary, you'd be able to buy these things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Sounds as if you have quite your game thought out already. Um, how will you know? How will you get feedback from them on the game, on the game mechanics, and did they learn something? Was it valuable?
So I'm lucky in that I have built a game before for a research paper. So I think I'd probably follow a little bit in that regard. I wouldn't personally do interviews with the students afterwards because I feel that can be problematic. But in the testing phases, I would definitely have more of my, I'd say, older tutor students have interviews or at least focus groups to talk about these things. I think focus groups are great because the students, when you put them into like a survey, it's a weird thing. Sometimes they're too scared to say something in case they can be seen. But with a focus group, there is a sense of ironically anonymity. And then also when other people start to open up, they feel more comfortable opening up. And I feel that you learn a lot more from that. So I definitely say during the testing phase, I would have students work with tutors, class tutors, and actually go through a little focus group to discuss problems in that. I think when you move past that testing phase into maybe your first and second iterations, for sure, then you could maybe move into the survey space and tell them that obviously it's helping you develop this further. So it's not that they're going to be in trouble. You really need to learn to develop this further, and they can be part of that process. I think it's very important to give students the ability to improve and add on to these situations because then they feel part of the learning, and they also feel part of producing something that actually inspires others below them. And I think that makes them more, I don't want to say responsible with their answers. So that's kind of how I would go about it.
Sounds like a plan. And I think it's important for us when we design games to get feedback and to get feedback on all of it. If you look at the anti-plagiarism game that I created, some of the feedback that the students gave was really, these images are 2D. They are so basic. They are, you've got AI and you've got 2D images. Um, and again, we had to decide between, do we want to have this 3D images or 2D, and we decided to go with 2D, but we know why we decided this. But this is the expectations of students. They see all the AI things. So again, in your game, you want things that you thought in your head made sense. And then the students say, but this was kind of either ridiculous, or this was too difficult, or why is this in here? So these are really, really important feedback. Even if you do something, I want to say different, and again, it depends on you as a lecturer, which sometimes we ask a pre-test and a post-test that's anonymous. So we can ask students, for instance, with the anti-plagiarism game, complete this questionnaire before the time, honestly, and it's anonymous. We don't want to know your name or anything, and they know, okay, I've got 3 out of 10 for my question. And then we want them to play the game and then again answer the question afterwards and see, did their knowledge improve? So that is again feedback to themselves, but also to you as the creator, that this actually had an impact, that this was valuable. But to ask students feedback, even I like the focus group idea. Alternative, which they do not always answer, is a anonymous Google form with a stop, start, continue. Like in stop, what is not working in the game; start, what is missing in the game; what do they want to see in the game; and continue, what is working in the game; what do they like; what should you keep in the game. So even those type of things. As I said, feedback that I've got from my games is that you can see you're not a native English speaking person, so maybe have it edited. Those are all valuable things that one need, or that your friends doesn't always tell you, but your students and your participants are sometimes really that brutally honest that they will tell you that. So thank you for that. Is there anyone else who wants to share their game? Okay, then in the last 6-7 minutes, I quickly want to take you just through the branching, and I'm sure most of you who have worked with games a lot are very, very familiar with this. But I still, for those of us who are still new to this, quickly want to just talk us through this. And now I must just find again the share button. I'm getting better at this sharing thing. Okay. Let's hope it goes. Okay. So we've looked now at conceptualizing your game, and as we've now discussed and got feedback from one another, some of you have already great ideas. Some of you still needs to think a little bit, and hopefully the seed is planted that you can start thinking about your game. Then you need to decide. Now you've conceptualized it, you know what you want to do, what's your storyline or your narrative, you know the villains, the challenges, the hacks, all the things that you want in your game, and now you need to decide how far do you want to branch it. So do you want a linear game, which is kind of boring? So hopefully the answer is no. So how do you want to branch it, and how far do you want to branch it? Because you can go ad infinitum with your branching, but the more branches, the more time. And if you want to see that all your branches are quality branches, it takes time to develop those things. So what I want to share with you here is on the left hand of the screen. Someone gave me a Google form with a game that they've developed just to see how it works. But something was wrong. It just didn't work. So I sat down and I plotted on paper, as you can see on the left hand side, the links, the branches, and then I realized, but here somewhere there was a mishap. There was a wrong branching to the wrong side, and I sat there and I rebranched it so that I could really find, and it was really small things that you had to change. but that's how the branching look finally. So if you want to look at the template and play a little bit with it, the branches are already there. You're more than welcome to scan the QR code and download it for yourself and work on a framework that's already there. As I said, there's not really a narrative. It's just like a good decision, bad decision, good decision, bad decision. But it helps us if we do this type of plotting and we do our branching. And as I've said earlier on, I do it with sticky notes very often. We design a curriculum with sticky notes, and we also design our games with sticky notes. It's just easier to see where everything is going. And you don't have to read this, obviously, but you can make it as complex, as wide or as high as you want to be, but you need to know where your students are going. So if you look at the right hand side image, if they get the answer correct, they can just go straight down to the correct answer and the right path. That's fine. But if you want to create this learning opportunities and personalize and individualize the learning for the students, and you want to have all these other branches, it takes time, but it's worth it. I cannot say that enough. It's really worth it. But you have to plan in your mind that all of these branches needs to be created. There needs to be substance in it. There needs to be the narrative, the engaging story needs to continue. So if they got captured here somewhere, they can't all of us and their hand chopped off. Now they can't enter here the game again with both hands. Horrible example, but you understand what I'm saying. So you need to make sure that your narrative works very, very well. I've done the same game that I showed you there on a Miro board as well to see how does it work and how does it look. And for me, this is a much neater look and feel, but paper-based to start with is just easier. And then obviously Twine, and I don't know how many of you have worked with Twine before, and I've put the link in there. There's an entire teaching series. The guy give you the images and everything, and then it takes you step by step through how to create your game on Twine, and this is free. Twine is free at this stage, but so was Kahoot and Cram and all those things. So free is always a gamble, but Twine is a free platform. So beyond those people who ask for free platforms, this is one of it. So you can register, and you can create your own games. You don't need a lot of programming. I've never had any training in programming. As a matter of fact, HTML and those things scares me really. It does, but I could do this. So this is really not that difficult. And here you can see again the same thing. I've plotted it on Twine, and what is nice in Twine that if you put in your links and things, it automatically creates the next bubble for you. So and I know we are out of time, so I'm not going to take you through the way to create a Twine branching scenario, but I will chat to you maybe in private if you want to consult and everything. But as I said, the videos are there. It is really, really not that difficult a process. I think I am going to stop here because I know we are out of time. I really want to be considerate of your time as well. So let's first pause. Lindini, yeah, you want to say?
Thanks, Dr. Irene. I didn't even realize that I was not muted. But thank you so much for facilitating the workshop. Really informative session. I'll now open the floor for anybody that has comments or questions. You can just use the mic function. We'll start by raising your hand first. But you can also alternatively use the chat function.
I hope you are at least a bit inspired to create a game or to start a process and to collaborate with your colleagues from in your institution or even from different institutions. And Mzili, maybe that's another option for you to link with someone from Wits or UP or wherever you are placed and see if you can collaborate on a game.
I see Bianca in the chat is saying she's re-inspired.
Thank you, thank you. Um, it is a pity we had to go to Kumu Space, and I understand that there was that was the planning, but it would have been nice if we could do some of the branching and our scenarios and things. And it's but too bad we can't. But hopefully now you can take your game that you've started to conceptualize and work it out and plot it further. So please feel free to drop me an email, and if you want to show me your game, that would be awesome. If not, that's also fine. But feel free to keep in touch. That is true. ChatGPT and Bard and those things are quite creative in even if not in the entire story, then at least to start you on your thought processes. If you develop your prompts in such a way that you ask it, start writing a narrative, start writing a branching scenario for me, and include these activities or include these concepts or include these aspects in your story. So I think there's a lot of help that we can get. Great stuff.
So next we're gonna go into the closing session, but it starts at 1. We still have a bit of time. So if you'd like to, I don't know, maybe have a quick discussion with Dr. Irene or share something or ask something, you're more than welcome to stay in the chat and do exactly that.
So I'll be here for a while, so give a shout. Otherwise, I do understand that this was a long day. So if any of you want to say farewell, goodbye, I'm going to have lunch, then I will see you in the next session where I will join you as a participant.
I posted in the chat a while ago that today's lucky draw closes at 3:15. So if you haven't registered, please drop in your name and then we'll have a lucky draw at the end of the day. Some exciting prizes to be won. And good luck.
Keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for participating and thank you for playing. I think that is maybe the biggest thing, as that you actually participated and that you played. There's nothing as horrible in a workshop when someone do activities and no one participate and no one volunteer and no one join the discussion. So thank you very, very much for everyone for participating.
Irene, may we have those links emailed, because they will disappear as we get out of this Blackboard, please?
Sure. Thank you. I see it's posted on the chat as okay, no, that's the other forms. Okay, it's fine. I will. And you're also welcome to drop me an email and I can send it to you as well. Let's see if I can add those. Oops, that's just a worksheet. No. Okay, drop me an email and I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Okay. Do you want me to take you to Twine or something as well? You can give a shout if you want me to show you. Otherwise, I do understand that you want to stretch your legs and the workshop is done. And maybe I think I can I'm going to stop the recording here.